Hey everybody, Alex Wooten here, the Lily's Chapel Church of Christ, and this is our weekly meeting of Coffee and the Word. And I decided to go a little different today, a little different route, a little different idea, and we're talking today about Zipporah. Sometimes, I've noticed sometimes in Scripture, there are moments that are just mysterious or even just weird that make you stop and say, wait, what did I just read? And today, that moment is about Zipporah, who is the wife of Moses. Moses is on his way back to Egypt. God has called him through the burning bush. He decides to go and he talks to Jethro, who is the father of Zipporah, and he says, I need to go let my people go. I need to go do this. That's in chapter 4. And in fact, he says in verse 18, please let me return to my relatives in Egypt and see if they are still living. Jethro then tells him, go in peace, and they go out because he's called to lead the people out of slavery. And this is that moment, that bush has burning, the calling, the mission. And then out of nowhere, on verse 24 of chapter 4, it says, on the trip at an overnight campsite or lodging place, it happened that the Lord confronted him and intended to put him to death. Zipporah took a flint, cut off her son's foreskin, and threw it at Moses' feet and said, you are a bridegroom of blood to me. So he let him alone. And at that time she said, you are a bridegroom of blood, referring to circumcision. Not only is this one of the weirdest moments in Moses' story, because there are some ones that are later, this is one of those weird and powerful moments in Scripture. So what's happening is God, Moses, for all of his calling and courage, had neglected something deeply important. And that was, to the Jews, that was the covenant of circumcision. Things that they had been commanded to do, Abraham and the like, and that had been part of it. Yet Moses didn't fully live that covenant out in his own home. His children, he had not done that, and they're supposed to happen, I believe, on the 8th day. And so Zipporah, not Moses, is the one who stepped in there. She saw what was at stake. She acted in faith when Moses apparently froze or just didn't do it, and saved his life and kept God's mission alive. Like, we know that had Moses failed and somebody else would have been, chosen. Like, we know how God works. And after this moment, we don't really hear much more about her. She doesn't lead any army. I cannot talk today. She doesn't lead any armies or raise any seas or part seas. But in this quiet, awkward, almost hidden moment, a single verse, she reminds us of something very powerful. Sometimes faith is not about standing on a stage. It's about standing in the gap. The moment you pray when no one else will. The moment you hold the family together when everything seems broken. The moment you decide to obey God when it's uncomfortable. Zipporah teaches us that faith isn't always pretty, but it's always powerful. God's work always starts at home. Before Moses was called to lead a nation, his family needed to walk in that Hebrew obedience. And sometimes it's the people closest to us who see these gaps, who call us back to what's matters. And Zipporah's moment wasn't about ritual, it was about relationship. It's about taking God seriously when other people didn't. It's about saying, if we are going to serve the Lord, then let's start right here. This week, look for that quiet place where you can begin to live your faith. Maybe in your family, maybe in a hidden act of obedience. But sometimes the greatest acts of faith aren't seen by the crowd. It's just God. Thank you for joining me on this quick little trip into the book of Exodus, this little story, and joining me with this cup of coffee. God bless.